Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Monday, March the 9th Board of Supervisors meeting. At this time, Ms. Steele, would you call the roll?
Dr. Orth?
Here.
Dr. Leming?
Here.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Here.
Mr. Nicosia?
Here.
Ms. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Bonniville?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. All that are able, please rise. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Dr. Orth, but prior to that, we're going to have a brief moment of silence in memory of Howard Mowry.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, it is spring, and we marvel at the beauty in front of our eyes, the wonderful daffodils and other flowering plants, the cheerful sounds of birds and children playing outside, the warm air following our cold winter. We give you thanks for this beauty you have bestowed upon us. Now guide us in our hearts and minds as we do the county business, especially now as we try to understand the needs of the county, schools, and citizens in our county budget. Watch over our first responders and members of our armed forces in these challenging times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we will move to adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Next, we have the approval of the consent agenda. Yes.
Yeah, this was a great feat. Do we want to have this team come when we have the joint school board meeting?
Yes, that is the plan.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
we're doing this one tonight.
Okay.
The school board will do a similar one tomorrow night, and then we will present as both bodies at the March 17th meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. We will now move to the public comment period. When you come forward, please state your name, your magisterial district. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you have called in or emailed your comments, if you speak before us tonight, we will not read or play your comment if you exceed your 3 minutes. So with that, we will move to the public comment.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Nash, and I live in the Ware district. And thank you guys for having us here and going through this meeting and everything else. Tonight, I just want to talk. From my understanding, there's been a lot of comments, a lot of calls, a lot of emails, everything else that's been coming across into your guys' emails and everything else. And I just want to remind everybody that you were put on this board in November by the majority of the county. So the information that you guys should be sending out from the county should represent the people from the county. And last meeting, you guys had discussed the amicus brief, and there was a couple reasons why you guys put out why you would do an amicus brief. And one of those reasons that I found from uscis.gov is to influence policy. And that enables interest groups to advocate for their policy positions in high-profile appellate and Supreme Court cases. These briefs are particularly important in cases that have significant social and legal ramifications. So that's something that wasn't brought up last meeting that I would just like you guys to think about while you guys vote tonight to possibly go forward with the amicus brief. So with that being said, please just remember, you guys work for the people. The lawyers work for you. The Miss Steele, she works for you guys as well, which all in turns works for us. So please do the will of the people even if they're not here speaking, we have a few people here, but we spoke in November. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Ms. Steele, Mr. Wilmot. My name is Teresa Altimus, and I reside in the Gloucester Point District. I am here to speak to you tonight on your agenda item 6B, your decision in discussing filing the amicus brief. I am here to encourage each and every one of you to vote yes, to go ahead and file it, and to represent the people of the Gloucester County by saying, we stand with you. This is an unconstitutional power grab by one side and is trampling on the rights, and it is to punish those of us Virginia voters who enjoy our First Amendment right of freedom of political speech. I watched the board meeting last week, and a couple of you have said that you have received emails asking you not to block their vote. This special election is fully underway. It does not block anybody's vote. Everybody has the right to go to the polls between now and April the 21st and vote. I voted, and I voted no. I voted no to protect my right and to have my voice heard. Let me tell you why it doesn't block it and why I think it's unconstitutional. First and foremost, Gloucester County is in the 1st Congressional District. And I'm going to use a statistic which most of you know that I do. If this referendum passes, we will become part of the 8th Congressional District. There are 19 proposed localities in the 8th Congressional District. The top 4 are Alexandria City, Prince William County partial, Fairfax County partial, Arlington County partial. Those top 4 localities have 362,839 votes, 59.5% of the votes in the 8th proposed district. The bottom 15, which Gloucester County is in, has a combined total of 251,623 votes, 40.96%. In what universe is that fair? I have no voice. You will not have any voice. Even if the top 3, let's knock out the bottom one, which is Arlington County. Even if the 3 top vote, that goes to 287,397. We still are 35,000 votes short. 15 localities, and every single registered voter will lose his or her vote. We will be disenfranchised, and we will not have a vote. In what real world can you have 5 congressional districts within 11 straight miles of each other? It simply is not fair, and I don't care what you're told. It is unfair, and that's why I voted no to the redistricting. As I continue to say, the current voting is ongoing. Your amicus brief shows your unwillingness to give in to the gerrymandering that is going on now. If I understand this correctly, and Mr. Wilmot, you are very capable of filing an amicus brief, even though you don't want to. I know your skills. The proposed language in this constitutional amendment, there is no sunset clause. Don't let anybody tell you this is all over in 2030. I have 2 questions. Is there a sunset clause on the First Amendment, freedom of speech? Is there a sunset clause on our Second Amendment, right to bear arms? The answer is no. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I ask you to vote to approve this and send it on up to the Virginia Supreme Court. Thank you for your time.
Obviously, I'm not as prepared as she is, but that's okay. Bear with me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name's Earl Murphy. I live down in Guinea, Brentwood Drive. I believe it's the York District, if I understand the way it's wrote. But basically, I'm here for you guys, to ask you guys to not support the amicus brief. We don't need that. Let the voters of Gloucester decide if they want to redistrict or not. As was said, we're voting now, early voting's going on, it'll go to the 21st, okay? Let us decide. Don't waste the county's money on a brief to the Supreme Court. Bottom line is you guys were elected by us, you represent us. Trust us to be smart enough to vote our hearts, and the majority will get what they want, okay? That's the way it's always worked. It's democratic policy, okay? That's all I gotta say. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name's Lisa Reed. I'm with Gloucester Point. I'm here to register my appreciation for you guys taking up this cause. I think it's very important that we as Gloucester show that this violates all of Gloucester, regardless of how you would vote. If it makes our county irrelevant and Northern Virginia city folk get to decide the rural ways that we have to live by, it's not fair. And to that end, 10-1 is not fair. I don't know in what universe anybody thinks that's fair. It has been said that other states are doing this. Other states aren't Virginia. For one, they didn't amend their constitution. We are amending our constitution. That's a big deal, and it's permanent. So that said, does anybody think if politicians get the power to decide how our districts are drawn, that they're going to give it back to the people? No. No. So that's not happening. There are so many things wrong with this, it would take me all night to go through it. But suffice it to say, we're here due to slick tricks. One party decided last November in the dark of night that they were going to slide in under an election using a improperly closed session from the year prior, even though we had already had a session last year, to call this special session so that they could meet the criteria for this bill to go through, because it has to be done twice. That's not okay. That's very deceptive. The wording on the ballot is very deceptive. It's supposed to be neutral. It's not neutral. It's very clear that it's one-sided. It's so many things wrong with this, and hopefully the courts will take it up. But in the meantime, I don't see any harm with us stating, whether it be an amicus brief or resolution, that we as Gloucester matter. We count. Our vote counts. Because as one of the speakers said before me, if this goes through, Alexandria and Northern Virginia gets to decide everything. We don't have a say anymore. And your vote, regardless of how you vote, doesn't matter anymore. So I challenge each of you to look deeply into how this was done, why it was done, and for what purposes it was done. Because I can assure you, it wasn't for fairness.
Good evening. My name is Susan Austin from Abingdon District. I want to tell you that I agree with every single damn word that everybody has just said in this meeting. And I am just frustrated to no end and very angry that anybody in the legislature would consider us losing our voice in favor of Northern Virginia. And, you know, it doesn't make any sense, because our vote will not count. Whatever we want to do, we're just, we don't have the population that they have in Northern Virginia. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to come forward? Ms. Cronin, I know we have some emails, if you would like to read those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have quite a few emails and then some voicemails to play. First, from David Helms in the York District. Dear board members, I won't waste your time regarding the motion to file an amicus brief with Supreme Court of Virginia. Do not insert yourselves into the democratic process by joining frivolous lawsuits. Voters and only voters must pick their maps and their representatives, not politicians and insiders. I urge you to follow County Counsel Wilmot's unambiguous recommendation not to submit an amicus brief. You should not do it. Be smart, follow Counsel Wilmot's recommendation, as taxpayers pay him for his expertise. I do not want the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors to embarrass our citizens in this frivolous and wasteful exercise. I do not support Dr. Leming's motion. I urge board members to vote no on Dr. Leming's motion on Gloucester County seeking permission to file an amicus brief with the Supreme Court of Virginia. Very respectfully, David Helms. From Janet Wooldridge, Perrin Creek Road. I heard there was a chance that our Board of Supervisors may vote to challenge the redistricting referendum, or even worse, to deny votes already cast in our county. I completely oppose you doing anything else to interrupt this election, which is already in process. Voters have cast ballots, and now we need to let this referendum be decided by the wider community. Specifically, I learned a motion was made by Dr. Leming to file an amicus brief with the Virginia Supreme Court. Please do not support this. Let the people speak. From Deborah Gautier, Gloucester Point. Our democratic process has brought us an opportunity to vote on a redistricting scheme. Using taxpayer resources and partisan loopholes, such as submitting an amicus brief to halt the democratic process, is corrupt and unethical. Do not submit an amicus brief. The democratic process should continue unfettered and let the votes fall where the greatest interest is invested, either yes or no. From Carol Brill in Gloucester Point, to the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors, regarding agenda item on filing an amicus brief. Do not waste taxpayer resources trying to deny our votes. Voters and only voters must pick their maps and their representatives, not politicians and insiders. I urge you to follow County Counsel Wilmot's unambiguous recommendation not to submit an amicus brief. You should not do it. There is no need to insert yourself into the democratic process by joining frivolous lawsuits. Do not do it. Follow Counsel Wilmot's recommendation. Taxpayers pay him to provide just such advice. I do not want the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors to waste county resources or time on a wasteful exercise. Let the voters decide. From Ronnie Cohen in the Abingdon District. As has been said many times after recent elections, elections have consequences. One consequence of the last election is that the Virginia legislature voted for a referendum on mid-decade redistricting. The Gloucester County Board of Supervisors should not be wasting the county's time and money to participate in a lawsuit for the sole purpose of declaring that the BOS is unhappy with the referendum. The job of the BOS is to use our tax dollars to improve our schools, maintain county infrastructure, and provide services to the citizens. We did not elect the board members to use county dollars to further their own political positions. From Robert Falk in Harcum, to the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors for filing of an amicus brief. I don't believe it is a purview of the Board of Supervisors to use county government funds and resources in an attempt to influence the decision of the Supreme Court of Virginia regarding the special election scheduled for April 21st. Let the state governmental process take place without the assistance of the Gloucester County BOS. Why would this county have some special information that needs to be provided to the Supreme Court in a friend to the court brief, an amicus? If the BOS is in possession of such special information, what is it? The purpose of an amicus brief isn't to express one's personal opinion. Even so, I am not aware of any polling or referendum by the BOS in an attempt to even get a sense of what the county citizens think of the upcoming election regarding the temporary redistricting of the Commonwealth's congressional districts. My own opinion is that a multivariate statistical procedure called cluster analysis is a fairer and more efficient method to determine congressional districts. This is backed by research and would save the citizens a ton of money. Perhaps the BOS could get behind this if they want to submit briefs to the Supreme Court, or to encourage our state representatives to submit this to the legislature for consideration for future elections. I think it is a bad look if the BOS is seen as attempting to keep the citizens of the county from exercising their democratic right to voice their opinion through a referendum. In my opinion, the BOS would do well to listen to the wise counsel of Mr. Wilmot's recommendation not to submit an amicus brief and move on to matters that are within its purview as our elected representatives. From Brenda Dixon on Poplar Pond Drive. 250 years ago, our forefathers protested against taxation without representation. As we are about to celebrate this period in the history of our country, what have we learned? We fought for a voice then. 250 years later, are we still fighting for a voice? Apparently so. The voice of the people is being suppressed in disguise. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Voter suppression is voter suppression. Please don't embarrass the good citizens of Gloucester and waste time, money, and other resources. Your actions will speak not just for you, but for all of Gloucester. When you know better, do better. It is 2026, do better. Allow the voices of the people to be heard. From Natalie Johnson in Gloucester Point. Good evening. First of all, thank you for your service to the citizens of Gloucester County. However, it is not necessary for you to submit an amicus brief to the Supreme Court of Virginia. There are enough county issues that need to be addressed and managed. The Supreme Court has issued a decision, now let the citizens vote. From Deborah Tate in the Ware District. My message is in regards to the amicus brief that our county attorney has already discouraged the board from filing. I agree with the county attorney and ask that you refrain from pursuing this action. Regardless of which way you choose to vote, everyone's vote matters. That's how we, the people, get our voices heard. Thank you for your time to listen to my discouragement in filing the amicus brief. From Pamela Garner in the Abingdon District. Members of the board, my bottom line is this. Gloucester County must stop any effort to pursue an amicus brief because it wastes taxpayer dollars, goes against the clear legal advice of County Council, and attempts to interfere with the voters' right to participate in the special election on redistricting. At the March 3rd meeting, County Counsel Edwin Wilmot stated more than once that Gloucester has nothing meaningful to add to the Supreme Court of Virginia. He explained that an amicus brief is supposed to enlighten the court and that Gloucester has no new information to offer. His conclusion was direct, I don't think you should do it. Despite that, a motion was introduced to authorize a request to file an amicus brief aimed at supporting the claim that the referendum vote is illegal. If pursued, Gloucester County would be aligning itself with litigation designed to overturn the voters' decision. That is not only inappropriate, it is a waste of taxpayer dollars. When your own attorney tells you the county has no legal contribution to make, any money spent on this effort becomes symbolic, redundant, and fiscally irresponsible. Taxpayers should not be funding a brief that adds nothing of value. The Supreme Court has already allowed the special election to proceed. Voters in Gloucester County have the right to participate in that process without interference. Any attempt to obstruct or undermine that election damages public trust and undermines the people you are elected to serve. I am asking you clearly, do not pursue this amicus brief, do not spend taxpayer dollars on it, and do not interfere with the special election on redistricting. Let the voters decide and let this election move forward. We had one anonymous comment submitted, which I won't read. And I'm going to go ahead and play the voicemails now.
Okay.
Have to call for help.
The great Oz has emerged.
For this joint amicus brief from Petsworth County, I believe. The county council statement that the Board of Supervisors amicable. Yes, this is Jenny George in the Ware District. I want to rebut Dr. Leming's case for joining this amicus brief from Petsworth County, I believe. The county council statement that the Board of Supervisors amicus brief will not add to the case. The fact is that it will, the second fact is that it will add to the waste of limited taxpayer funds, which I object to completely, as so many of my tax dollars are going to things that I do not support. There's potential for it to embarrass the citizens of Gloucester County. And quite honestly, I think you could use better use of your time instead of joining these nonsensical law cases to stop the amendment that is currently being voted on. And if you do, you know, you are risking your political future in Gloucester County as far as the Board of Supervisors too. We have long memories and we know who you are. Thank you very much. Bye.
Good morning. This is Cynthia Sorensen. I live in Millwood in Gloucester. Purpose of my call is, according to your discussion decision on filing on an amicus brief, please do not waste the taxpayers' resources trying to deny our vote. Do not insert yourself into the democratic process by joining the frivolous lawsuit. Voters and only voters must pick their maps and their representatives, not the politicians and insiders. I urge you to follow County Councilwoman's unambiguous recommendation not to submit an amicus brief. You should not do it. Be smart, follow Councilwoman's recommendation. That's why taxpayers pay him. I do not want the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors to embarrass our citizens in this frivolous and wasteful exercise. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gwen, and I'm calling from the Petsworth district. And I have become dismayed that elected officials think that it's okay to spend my tax dollars in any way they see fit, even if it's for partisan purposes. And it needs to be known that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does not get to decide if there is a Virginia election, and they also don't get to decide when there is an election, or if I get to vote in that election, or if my vote counts in that election. And the fact that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors is now trying to nullify the will of the people is even more disconcerting. Do not waste my tax dollars by joining Tazewell in this brief. Thank you.
This is Catherine Mazzacco. My address is 6179 Green Cove Lane, Gloucester. And I am commenting on the vote for redistricting. I do not think that the proposed amicus evaluation or submission is needed, and there are opinions by the justice that it is not needed. So I am supporting that.
Hello, this is Walter Rowe, 4584 Marshview Lane, Hayes, Virginia. Just calling to ask you not to support that amicus brief. I feel like that would be just a political move and not a move that's for the citizens of Gloucester County. Please don't support an amicus brief. Thank you.
Okay. I think, well, is anyone else wishing to speak tonight before the board, before I close public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to our regular agenda. Ms. Steele, are you going to go to the podium or you want to stay where you are? It's up to you. I'm not sure where you want to go, but.
I'm going to go to the podium.
Okay. So we will start with the presentation of FY 2027 County Administrator's proposed budget. Ms. Carol Steele.
One of the reasons I wanted to come to the podium is because we're tag teaming it, and so
Very good.
Ms. Calloway and Ms. Legg will be helping with the presentation. Okay, thank you. So as everybody knows, at least up here and in the audience, that we are looking at fiscal year 27, which means that our July 1 through June 30th budget, and it's that time of year that this gets presented and discussed. And usually this is more of a presentation in a time where have made cuts, have made evaluations with the staff. And this year, the board asked the presentation include all of the requests rather than my taking a look at it first, and for educational and other reasons for the public. And so you're going to see the full expenditures that were requested and an estimate of the revenues that Ms. Callaway has projected with an equalized real estate tax rate, and then the potential additional revenue opportunities for the board to review and discuss. And just a reminder of all that we're doing, it should go to the board's vision and mission. So the Board of Supervisors adopted the vision that Gloucester County is a place where character and historic significance intertwine to make Gloucester the land of a life worth living. And the mission is Gloucester County is committed to providing exceptional customer-focused public service to enhance the community's quality of life, prosperity, and safety while sustaining and celebrating the county's rich history and natural beauty. Definitely seeing that today in our weather. The budget process, it's cyclical, but the part that we're going to be covering tonight is that started in the fall. It's a long process, and it starts with the department heads submitting in their capital improvement request for items that are for $50,000 or higher and long-term lifespans. And then after that, the department heads submitted their personnel requests, and that was done in December, and then their operating requests were turned in January. Then the budget team met with each of the department heads, and we review each line item, and we analyze them to make sure that we're looking at trends, we're looking at future anticipated needs, and also historical data and what that really shows, whether money is needed or additional money. Sometimes we have department heads who won't ask for an increase, but yet historically they've gone over in a line item over and over, but they're sort of afraid, they don't want to ask for more money, and we're like, you need to put in what's realistically being spent. The county administrator met, or I did meet with the board last week, so that's the final step before tonight. We met either one-on-one or one-on-two to discuss the major changes and ask for input. So the total figure that you're seeing is a larger one than normal, and it includes, again, all the requests from the different submissions that come from a various group, from the schools, from external agencies, et cetera. And the FY27 capital improvement that I presented to you earlier in the year, no changes have been made to that at this point, so that's submitted as was done at that time. The FY27 totals to, the request total to over $96 million with a projected revenue totaling to 89. So 89.5. So that leaves us with an operating gap of 6.5 million. And that is, again, using the equalized tax rate and no other increases to taxes or fees. That's our sort of starting point. The general fund is where most of the things that are done and are kind of where we have a little bit, or the board has control, and where we have areas to be able to submit new programs, new services, and keep up with things. So it has a lot of different programs and again, a lot of different transfers. This is just the expenditure sheet summary, which I'm not going to go over tonight, and we'll talk about the information that you'll be given later. But tonight is, again, kind of the overview, and then you're going to be given all the different line items, and we'll talk about that more. So this shows you the breakdown of how do we get to the $96 million that was requested, and it shows that, similar to the budget gap, it's 6.8 million over our last year's, or our current year budget, excuse me. The major expenditures that are creating this gap, we're going to go over those, and the first are the personnel expense increases. As the board is aware, I've proposed a 2.8% COLA, which is based on what Social Security offered. And this is partially state funded when we have boards that are, or we have comp board positions. The sheriff's step plan, the board's been made aware of it, but to make sure the public is aware that this is something that we implemented with the Bolton pay study, that we wanted to be like other law enforcement departments that had an annual step plan that would ensure that deputies and law enforcement officers had the opportunity to move along and sort of see where their salary was going to go and hopefully help greatly with retention. So this is the first year of implementing that, and that's almost at a cost of $150,000. Unfortunately, we are at this point out of the grants for our SRO officers and our officers that are in the school system. And that is a state grant that you can apply for 4 years. And when you're done, you're sort of at the level A, B, C, D. And the state has said that the grant is for new positions, like additional positions. However, if they are at a D level, you can submit, and if there's funding left over, there may be some funds that would be appropriated. We are going to pursue this, but the results of that grant application will not be known at the time that the budget is adopted. It'll be after that. So we have to assume that we would need to, if the board wants to continue the program, that we would need to fully fund it. We also have an adjustment that is in there as a new request, a slight change. Right now, the county staff receive a 0.66, or it's 0.33 and 0.33, so less than 1% step increase. And that is to keep up with tenure and experience so that as new employees come in, it helps with compression and helps recognize their time here and again help with retention. We have not raised that amount since it was initially implemented, and so I'm suggesting that we raise it by 0.34 and bring it up to a full 1%. The sheriff's step plan is a 5% plan, and one of the things that we want to make sure is that we sort of are keeping up with that, and we don't have any, it's not going to keep up, but it's another thing to helping with morale and again retention. This also has never been given to department heads. When the plan was implemented, it was felt like that they were brought in at a market salary and they didn't receive any additional pay other than the COLA for their work with the number of years that they've been here. So this $38,000 includes the difference from going to 0.66 for all county employees that are in the general fund. So it excludes utilities and it excludes social services, but it's everybody else. And it would include for the first time that department heads would get a 1% step for their time here. You don't get this, obviously, until you've been here a full year. And we only do it once a year. It's not done at anniversaries, so some people have to wait longer until it comes around to the second time. And your 2 contract employees are excluded from this, so this isn't anything that affects the county administrator or the county attorney. New to the list that you didn't see in the prep, we were able to finalize our career ladder adjustments, the salary adjustments. And these are for positions that have, some are automatic and some are earned as far as what the employee has done going up to another level of seniority. A pretty disturbing number is a 30% forecast for health insurance increase. I am hoping that by the next time that we present to you, we'll have a better rate, and I think that it's been said we're going to be in the double digits. And I think that's probably pretty fair, but hopefully at least to cut this in half, because this is when you're starting with not that much revenue coming in over last year, and to have a $1.3 million increase and the other things that are above is a heavy load. And I have heard, and I've shared with some of the board members, that our communities around here that have already adopted their budgets and had their health insurance come in, or not adopted their budgets, but had their health insurance rates established. Several of them are at 13%, 13.2%, one was at 11%. So it's not just Gloucester that's feeling this. There were 9 new employees when I originally met with a few of you all, and after clarifying one of the positions, it was a part-time position, we eliminated that, and that was the Parks, Rec, and Tourism. So even though I'm saying this is the full request, this was something that the Parks, Rec, and Tourism Director we talked about and is covered by the workers required salaries. So that's why there are only 8 new positions. That's the full list of them, not necessarily what would be recommended. And then another new figure for you to see is the vacancy savings. We know that every year we have people who leave. We have positions that take time to fill. Sometimes we have positions that are filled at lower levels, other times we have payouts, all these different things, but we're anticipating that the net figure for that would be a savings of $666,000. So the first significant impact totals to $2.6 million for personnel. The superintendent has presented his budget, and you all will be meeting with the at the joint meeting soon, and the school board will be meeting next year and adopting the budget. So what we have right now is just the superintendent's budget to base off of. I will say that Mr. Chriscoe made a suggestion that I think was very good, if we can work it out in the calendar, to move this presentation until after the school board has adopted their budget, and that would just make things a little bit smoother in not knowing what they're going to approve of what their superintendent recommends. So the total ask for them is $2.9 million, more than their current fund. And as you can see, there's a revenue reduction. That is both in the number of students and the LCI calculation. And then the expense changes going up, so that the total again for 2.9. Their big significant ones, there's a long list that you'll hear from the superintendent when he does the presentation for you, but their long list includes the health insurance, and they're estimating a 15% increase. And unfortunately, their contract is not renewed during the time that the budget is adopted. So similar to the SROs, whatever their final negotiation is, their final projection, which hopefully will come down between now and then, is the only figure that we'll have. Some of you may remember that years past, the school superintendent had to come to the board after the budget was adopted and ask for an additional appropriation because the price for insurance came in higher than what had been budgeted for. So they try to put enough in there, but not too much. At this point, the superintendent's recommended budget includes a 2% COLA, or compensation increase. This is back and forth in the General Assembly, and I haven't heard any news today of any of what's been adopted, but I know there was 2% plus a bonus this year on one side, and on the other side was a 3%. So those figures are a little bit in flux too, and should be hopefully coming to a conclusion on that soon. And then with the declining enrollment, one of the things that Dr. Vladu included was staffing attrition would be the removal of up to 12 full-time employees. So there are other things that you'll hear about again with the budget presentation, but for the public's sake, because most of y'all have seen the list, but I wanted the public to understand where did the majority of that 2.9 come from. The Facilities Maintenance, Repair, and Replacement Fund, and this is on the county side, but it does include the sheriff's vehicles down there at the bottom. The full request is for $1.3 million. And the way that we're suggesting to meet that request is to use part of the fund balance. So the proposed budget, or it's really not a proposed budget, but the consideration for you is one way to reduce that hit is to use $750,000 of the reserve of that for that fund balance, which had grown more than we had anticipated, or more than I had anticipated, and so the balance would be left would be $609,000, and then that would be added to if there's any money that's left over in FY26 that would go into that. And the 589 increase over is the figure that I shared with you in the meetings we held. We have an 8% of our budget goes out to external organizations, so it's a considerable amount. It's not that much of an increase, but all of these things add up. So I think I had 318 when I met with you all, but it's down to 295, and that's a good thing. We divided categories up on the external request into civic organizations, required services, and partners, and you could see that out of what is going out of the general fund, the majority, the 84%, is to our required services, 13%, and I'll follow these up with slides, goes to the partners, and the smallest being the civic organizations. These are the civic groups that requested funds this year, and I have suggested that the board consider doing an amount that you want to fund, and then after the budget, look at establishing policies that we have never had for who can apply and what kind of things that you all want to fund. and also have potentially maybe a subcommittee of board members that would review each of the individual applications where they explain how they want to use the money, what the impact is going to be, how they use last year's money, if they're new, et cetera. So the total increase there, if funded, was $80,000. The only one that was funded last year that asked for additional money is the Boys and Girls Club. The required service, which again is the 84% of the external organizations, includes our fire and rescue. And these really, we kind of struggle with what to call them because they're like government-related services, things that you have to do if you have a local government. We have to have fire and rescue. And then we have to have the health department or be connected with one. And there, we also have our juvenile detention and our juvenile services and our EMS councils too. So the increase over next year's funding of this year's funding is $169,000 requested. The partner group are organizations that the board has made a commitment to funding that help us provide the services that we do and provide more services to the community, such as Bay Transit and Bay Aging, which offers, or we work with for our housing program. And there's Gloucester Matthews Humane Society. We've had a long partnership with them, the community college, et cetera. And I will note, in case anybody thinks, why is Hampton Roads PDC in here and not the Middle Peninsula? The Middle Peninsula has not, they have come in later, but they also go in under the administration's line. And the HRPDC goes in as an external request. That's just the way it's been done. So they're not being left out. They're just included in the administration's budget, which when you get your line items, you'll see it there. So the summary of major changes, as you can see, the personnel, the school, the FMRR, and the external request, and then also what's not shown, or I didn't have an individual slide on, are the utilities fund, and we're going to explain more about the amount. That's a little different than was discussed in our preliminary meetings. And then the software fees, that's particularly for Tyler Munis, which we're sort of stuck with, and not stuck with the software, but stuck with the increase that we don't have an option on that. So let's flip to the other side. It's moving from expenses to revenues. Here again is how we get to the $89 million projection. And compared to last year, and you can see the different things, the general property taxes including excluding real estate, personal property, the other taxes, meals, sales, lodging, state corporation fees, all of those things are in here, and when you get your budget breakdown, you'll be able to see those, each of them. The preliminary use of fund balance, if you look at the first column where it's got the unassigned, that's the 2.8 that's been requested for use with the capital improvement funding. And then the 1.2, those are in restricted accounts. But when we look at how we use our fund balance, we have to include not only the unassigned, but we also have to include the committed or assigned or reserve account. So if you see that 4.1, we don't want you to think, wait a minute, how are we spending 4.1? The others have their own fund, but they are still part of the fund balance. So some potential revenue opportunities. I want to thank the board very much for the discussions that we had about potential new or additional revenues, and for the public's sake, it's not that there's no decisions, nobody's saying we got to do this, but it was like, what would we generate? And to evaluate and to have the knowledge of what are the possibilities, is, especially when we're looking at this revenue gap, is a good thing. So you asked us to evaluate several of them and prepare some details. So the first one is one that the board has decided years ago not to go for when it became available, and that's the potential cigarette tax. So you can see how much the neighboring communities that have this tax are collecting and the amounts that they charge per pack. in order to be a part of this program, you have to be in an authority. So there's a lot of work that if the board wants this to be pursued, we would want to know that so we can go verify that A, one of the authorities will accept us in, B, checking on the operational expenses, the cut that they take for the management, provision, the help that they provide, and then we had the Commissioner of Revenue did a presentation a couple years ago when this came about and explained that this is a huge new workload on their department. So in looking at the revenue, there would also need to be accounting for new staff that would have to be managing this locally. And you're going to see these figures of between this amount and this amount. You don't have to worry about writing anything down or whatever because the totals are expressed again in the end as a summary. The next one that's been brought up just about every year is the boat tax. And in addition, I've mentioned a couple times that some of the localities have switched to a boat fee. So you can see the amounts that are being charged both in a tax rate or as a boat fee of the communities around us that do collect and the revenue that they are generating. I know that you all are aware that our Commissioner of Revenue has to value the boats and go through this exercise every year, even though our tax has like a whole bunch of zeros in front of that one and we don't collect, they still have to account for them. And so what we've noticed is, and I think it's probably post-COVID, that there's been a significant decline in the number of boats registered in Gloucester County. And I think that's also common from what I've seen of state figures too. But if you look at 22, from 21, we were down 3%, the 0.3, and then the 1%, and then 1.5, and then this year it even dropped off more. So less boats, and that's just the reality of it. 97% of our boats are recreational, and that's where most of the decline has been. The number of business boats has been pretty much steady at the 3%. If Gloucester was going to charge a $1 rate, then the projected revenue in FY27 would be $622,116. So that's best guess based on the number of boats that we anticipate would be here and the numbers that the Commissioner has provided us. The boat fee is a little bit harder to estimate because if you want to do comparisons so that we're competitive, the rates are kind of all over the place between the different localities. So this is a wide range. And Ms. Calloway, looking at the number of boats we have, looking at the averages of different rates that are charged around here, we're looking at could be anywhere from $96,000 to $480,000. And this is, again, another example, just like the cigarette tax, that once the board has had a chance to meet and discuss these, if the board wants to move forward with one of these, we would need to hone in on, if you wanted to charge a boat fee, would we be looking at $96,000 anticipated or $480, and the fees that you would want to charge. Another potential tax that has been raised by the board, and you had Mr. Wilmot look into, and Ms. Calloway also provided information on, are we maxed out? And that is our meals tax. And according to the code right now, we can raise it, and wanted you first to see where, the reminder of what our rate is of 4% and the revenue that's collected, and to see what our neighbors are doing. Williamsburg and the cities have different kinds of rules than we have. They also have different ones on the lodging tax as their special tax. I have heard that James City County and York County are both looking at raising their taxes next year. I did verify that James City County, there was an article on it that they considered last year and selected not to. I'm not sure that'll be the same thing, but this gives you an idea of where we are. And then this gives you, what if we raised it by 0.5% to all the way up to 2% of what additional money could be generated. So if you raised it to the maximum, we are anticipating that the FY27, based on what we know 4% is supposed to bring in, that would bring in $1.8 million more dollars. And then another revenue that was suggested we look at is our fees. And that came up a few months ago, and then it came up again last week. And trying to do something kind of quickly without spending a lot of time analyzing everybody's individual fees that they charge in other localities and how much we could actually bring in, we thought we would go to the department that brings in the most fees and look at where could be the biggest bang for the buck. So the building permit revenue is estimated to be $296,000 next year. And if the board wants to direct us, and if you think that the return on investment is worth it, either because it needs to be done because you'd like to have a higher cost recovery than 30%, or you think it really helps with the general, with the revenue loss, you can see the amounts if we raise by 10, 20, or 30%. And the staff can come back and give you proposals for which fees and the amounts. But the main thing to understand is even if we raise the fees by 30%, you can see it doesn't generate as much as some of the other kinds of taxes do. The personal property tax is listed here. Last year you did do an increase, and this is just what it would be, and you could see quickly so you can have a reference chart of if you raised it. And then the same thing, we are looking at, for the real estate, we are looking at an equalized rate, so you can see we're down there at the 0.614, which is what our current tax rate is. And if you raised it a penny, how much more you would bring in. And the different amounts are just, again, it's more of a chart that we think that you'll be looking at as future reference of do you or do you not go this direction, as well as looking at budget cuts. I'm not implying it's all on the revenue side. So here's that summary, and the total is a smaller total because, again, it looks at the smaller amounts. It's looking at, for personal property and real estate, just if you did the 1 cent, and I believe I have to go back and I would look if it was the penny or just the penny on the personal property rate. So with all of these implemented at the lowest rate, it still would only be $2 million, a little over $2 million. So I wish there was better news, because this is a hard budget. I've said that several times. You all are in a really rough position, and wish the revenue stream was higher than it is. And so depending upon the board's interest, again, we would like to do more research and also work with the county attorney to make sure that we would be doing the things that we can to, to implement those additional taxes. And I'm going to switch over to Maria.
Good evening. All right, so while general fund is obviously a majority of what we're going to focus on, we certainly don't want to forget about the other funds that make up the total county umbrella. So we have several of them, and I'm going to walk through each of them. 47.8% of these requests are in the form of transfers to other funds. So of that total number of general fund dollars you just saw earlier, almost half of it is actually going to other funds. So they're all listed here, and I'll highlight a couple of things. First, 90% goes to 3 different funds, and that's schools, capital, and debt service. And then also you'll notice that on that second row, you'll see that we don't have a number in there for the cafeteria fund for the schools. Last year, the board approved a one-time $450,000 appropriation from the unassigned fund balance to the cafeteria fund to be more of a holding place to make sure that they had enough funding to operate cash flow-wise through the year. Year to date, they have not used any of that fund balance. However, it is in their budget request to have that fund balance carried over into fiscal year 2027. I have not put it here because we generally present carryovers as part of the revised budget. We try to make all the new requests in this original proposed, and then during the work sessions, we'll present you with anything that we'd like to carry from fiscal year 26 over. So that is likely where you will see that $450,000. There's also alternatives. The board could, if that funding is not used this year, the board could choose to reallocate that and put it right back into unassigned fund balance and use it elsewhere in the future. You'll also notice, I'll point out the utility fund is new on this chart. And again, we'll get into that number a little bit later in the presentation. That number was lower when Ms. Steele talked with each of you, and there is a reason why it is now that very specific number. So the first fund or series of funds that I'll go through here is the education funds. So these are all the school funds. There are 4 different school funds. They're the school operating, the cafeteria, which I just mentioned, special education fund, and the grant fund. The total of the fiscal year 27 proposed school funds are $84.8 million. Of that, $2.9 million is local funding from the county that's being requested. So certainly that is subject to change. And then, as I just mentioned, they are requesting a carryover of $450,000 of fund balance. Next is the social services fund. We're looking at about a $440,000 increase in this fund, which is due to personnel mainly. And about 36% of this fund is funded by local dollars. The Children's Services Act Fund, I just was here last month to present to request an appropriation for the Children's Services Act. This is largely mandated services. So a judge places a child in a certain type of school, that we have to pay for it. It's not 100% local. It's generally shared with the state government. But however, we are, because of that, seeing that trending high, there's a higher request of $1.2 million in this budget for local dollars. This is a recap of the capital fund, so you'll see the revenues, expenditures. This is higher than the original proposed because of the body taught HVAC, which we mentioned we'd be including. It makes the most sense to replace that HVAC if the whole wing is being done. It's at its ASHRAEA standard life for replacement, and so that is shown in that $8.1 million where you see long-term debt. And I also have some fresh information regarding the school sales tax fund where that may not have to be debt funded. So I'll mention that in an upcoming slide. This is the debt service fund I mentioned in my last presentation. This is basically a pass-through fund where the general fund and the school sales tax fund fund the payments of any debt, and it's based on whether eligible or ineligible, whether it's locally funded or funded with school sales tax. The county grant fund, this is the second year of this fund, and it's laid out a little bit differently to make sure that I clearly show what is being funded, how much of general fund dollars are included in this. So that first column is the total expenses. This fund is totaling to $3 million this year. Of that, $2.4 million is grant, donations, other dedicated revenue sources, and then you'll see general fund transfers of $601,000. The most notable here is what Ms. Steele mentioned earlier, the school resource officers. That first row, you'll notice, says $315,728, and that top, and it's 0% grant funded. That is to fund those 3 school resource officers that have been grant funded for 4 years. And now we're in the 5th year, and the most conservative way to do this is to estimate that the general fund will have to fully fund those officers and hope for a grant. There we go. Opioid abatement fund. This fund is not local tax dollars. We are working on revisions to the long-term plan of this fund. This is settlement funds that we've received from the opioid abatement settlements. And right now we are budgeting to use $405,000 of this fund for fiscal year 2027. Majority of that is for a grant that is not actually our settlement funds. It's a small portion of our settlement funds that we work with the Northern Neck Regional Jail on. And then we are proposing to continue with the prevention and treatment specialist, which has been extremely popular at the high school. And popular may not be the right word. It's been very effective, I would say, is the best way to word that. And we are working with the schools to make sure that we're enhancing that if that's where the dollars are best spent for this purpose. Also going to continue with the dosing subsidization per our MOU. Okay, I mentioned the school sales tax fund. I don't have anything earth-shattering to actually show you on this slide, but what I can tell you is this originally is budgeted as the transfers out of $5.5 million in the expenditure half of the slide, which would be the school sales tax funded debt payments. And that included a payment for 1 year of body tot, where we would be debt funding it and then making those payments out of this fund. However, we reviewed the projections for that fund, and we currently have the cash, it appears to, well, it doesn't appear, it is there, to fund that project in full with cash, which would avoid interest costs. That is something that I would like to provide the board with additional information on, because we do want to make sure that we're aligning with the capital plan any other eligible projects that you may want to use that funding for in the future, and prioritizing those in the best order. So more information will be coming to you, and certainly would expect we'd discuss that at a future budget work session. The first, the Gloucester Sanitary District, these districts, the two districts and then also the mosquito control are all funded with a 1 penny tax of the properties that are within those districts. And so in this particular district, the total revenues are 29,000, sorry, not million, mostly derived from general property taxes, as well as a little bit of interest that's earned. Gloucester Point is the same way. However, we are projecting that this district will bring in a little more revenue than what we need to spend. So we're projecting that we'll add about $6,800 to fund balance in this fund. Mosquito control is similar. We are expecting to add a little bit of fund balance, and it looks like I am missing a number in this one, but it's about $1,000. But it's funding itself, which is a good thing. Oh my gosh, this thing is a little sticky tonight. We're just gonna do a quick recap of the capital plan. Oh my goodness, I don't know what just happened. There we go. So the 5-year CIP request, this is the only update is highlighted in yellow. That's the HVAC for body tot. Do you want to do it, Trish? Thank you. The total recommendations have increased again by that body tot renovation, the body tot HVAC, so to $8.1 million. And then this is a summary of the PAYGO projects. The total recommended PAYGO projects amounted to $2.8 million, which were all recommended to be funded with unassigned fund balance. The important point here, where you'll notice a couple of additional lines there with the 16 and 15%, is if the board wishes to pursue a bond rating, it may be more desirable to use less fund balance and try to maintain as much fund balance as we can. So we have, our policy says 14 to 16%, 15 is the minimum, and so we have budgeted in that 2.8 to go all the way down to 15%. If we would like to maintain 16%, which is the top of our policy, then we could only use $1.463 million of unassigned fund balance, which would mean some of those requests would either have to be cut, or there would have to be operating or other revenues that would cover the remainder of the capital plan. Thank you. Forgot. This is just a reminder of the unassigned fund balance, so no changes here, just to make sure that you have it available. And another reminder, I'm using that word a lot tonight, $11.8 million are things that were not funded in this, recommended for funding by our county administrator in this plan, and will likely show up on a future request in fiscal year 2028. And I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Legg to review the utilities plan.
Good evening. Maybe now it might work. Okay, here we go. Just some quick highlights. So the FY27 proposed utilities budget includes a lot of the same personnel type expenses that you heard from the general fund side, the 2.8% COLA, career ladder increases, and the projected 30% health insurance increase. It also incorporates what was presented in last fiscal year, the 13% increase in rates versus the 14% that you all heard from me a couple of weeks ago. Still incorporates proposed borrowing to continue supporting the capital plan, and the $935,684 revenue from a potential increase in the meals tax. That is a 1% increase in the meals tax. So this is just a summary of revenues versus expenditures. You can see the very middle column is FY27 proposed of $12.3 million. So this is $1.5 million over the FY26 budget, and this is mostly accounted for in the increase in the capital plan. Yeah, we had a rogue slide. So this is the capital plan. This has been amended. So when you saw this in, as we were working on the FY26 budget, not all of these projects were listed here, but the cost was about $4.89 million at the time for FY27. Through a reprioritization, reviewing the projects that were part of the master plan recommendations, that has brought us to this list. Some things have been moved up. So for example, the Force Main bypass up 17. That has been moved up a couple of years to start that design process sooner because we believe that we can push off some upgrades to Pump Station 13 for about 5 years if that happens first. And that will help us with a lot of our pump station capacity issues here in the courthouse. So the proposed capital plan for FY27 currently sits at $4.755 million. So this is just a breakdown of how that looks different from last year to this year and also 5 years. So you see in the first column, you've got what the current plan is based on the FY26 adopted budget versus what we are going to be recommending now. And you can see over 5 years, there's a significant reduction in capital requests. And that is mostly attributed to, again, shifting some things around, but also pushing out the potential expansion of the water treatment plant. That is about a $17 to $20 million project. So moving those out into later years has shifted those costs. So proposed rate increase, again, this budget is proposed with a 13% rate increase for water and sewer customers, as I shared with you last year as well. So this is what that would look like for our customers. So 86% of our water customers use roughly 5,000 gallons or less. So someone's current water bill is $57 a month, and at 5,000 gallons. They would then go to $64.65 per month for an increase of $7 per month. What that looks like for water and sewer customers. Again, assuming a 5,000 gallon customer would go from an $86.50 to $97.75 per month. And I'm done this time, very quickly. I will pass it back to Ms. Steele.
Okay, I want to summarize a few things, and before flipping the slide, I'll say there were two things that you heard tonight that were kind of in the recommendation category. One is using the FMRR reserve to try to help soften that. That seemed to be something that, in a previous discussion, that I thought the board would be interested in. The one that Ms. Legg and we were all kind of hinting around to, that came about last minute, and we knew we were going to be looking at what would a meals tax do. At the same time, you've heard Ms. Legg talk about, and the board has wanted to help provide general fund dollars to build up the reserve that is needed, this 180-day that may take 5 years to get there. And so originally, when I met with you all, we were discussing $660,000 over like a 5-year period. In the enterprise system, and this is what happened with Mr. Dawson quite a bit of times too, when your operating expenses go up because of breaks, repairs, the personnel and things, he postponed capital projects. So right now, she's hurting in this budget, and if this went from 660 to, if the board was accepting of raising the meals tax for a penny and earmarking that so that all citizens would be helping to contribute to the utilities, that would give her the extra money that would allow her to to carry over her capital projects and actually be able to do those projects next year and just keep things going. So it's another little bit of a boost of keeping utilities on the right track. So those are, again, 2 recommendations, but what we really want to hear is more thoughts and ideas and what research or questions that the board has to try to make these very difficult decisions. And obviously, over the time of the next few weeks and until the budget is adopting, you're going to be hearing from the public in town halls and in the public hearing, and I'm sure emails and phone calls and other things too. If there are items tonight that you all would like to discuss or things that you know immediately you'd like to have more information on, we're ready and willing to take those notes. We are also more than happy to bring back recommendations if this seems to be overwhelming of what would you cut first or what would you add first. We will look at doing that as well. If you would like to have, we'll help with organizing speakers. If you'd like to have any thematic nights or some specific speakers, like if you wanted a night to have everybody who's asked for a civic contribution to come out and explain things, we'll set that up and use one of those work sessions for that. If there's certain departments that you want to hear more about, and I think you'll also, it's not like you have to say that tonight, we just might need a little bit of notice to make sure that they're available. But I think as you get into the budget, you might have more questions about certain ones, especially the new board members as you're really, looking. So we're happy to bring in department heads to present their budget, both past and request of what they've had and what they're asking for. So we owe some deliverables that will be coming ASAP. The first one is the Excel file that has the full budget that allows you to go in and play and change and move things around and explore and also look at the notes and all. And that will include the line item budget with that we'll be sending. And then we wanted to send also a school transfer history worksheet because that's been brought up before of how much funds, and we were looking at the percentage of what has gone there. And then we have a budget appendix, so really that could be part of our budget appendix. Last year we pulled out many of the documents that just, again, are overwhelming to look at all these individually, and you want to have time to study them, and they are the backup documents that get you to the sheets that we show, or the screens, the slides that we showed you tonight. So I'm happy to stay at the podium. I'm happy to go back to my seat. However you all would like to proceed, Mr. Chair, with any questions, comments?
Questions, comments, and Ms. Steele, if you're more comfortable, I don't think you need to necessarily be standing if you'd rather go sit down.
Thank you.
Dr. Orth.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ms. Steele. And
I'm sorry. She's going to flip up. I didn't mean it.
So, and I'm sure other people have questions, but I'll go through mine first. So, the cigarette tax, I think I asked, this year, isn't the vape issues going to take place regarding, no, that's passed?
No, it did not.
It did not pass. So it's just cigarettes and associated products?
Right, just cigarettes.
Okay. Is it possible that for the rest of the supervisors, a table that shows the tax changes over time, you know, I think you do have a table somewhere that you've provided us so the other board members can see how we've revised our taxes over time. So for example, we raised taxes last year of 3 pennies, but in the past, of course, we've equalized too, and that needs to be considered when we look at that table. The other is the health insurance. Now, you said that the school's at 15%, we're at 30. Is that because of the fact that we have fewer employees, that our rate would be higher?
Years ago, we were less expensive than them, and it's flip-flopped. And I think it's mainly the age of the county employees. Older staff cost more in general than people having families and all. And then there's people having a lot less families than they used to, family members. So I think it's just kind of the nature of how things have changed, that they are have a better rate as far as their projected inflation, but obviously their total is much higher.
I know you mentioned that some of the other counties have rates around 15% or so. So our 30% is projected, could be less.
It will, I am sure it will be less. Our insurance provider last year did the same kind of thing and was like 20%, and then they dropped it. I think they love to give you the scary news and then give you the good news at the end.
Well, would we have that number before we finalize the budget?
The request for proposal documents were submitted last Friday, and so it's quite a stack that has to be gone through. So we'll have like a preliminary by looking at what the results are there, but that's not going to be a final negotiated amount quite yet. We'll keep you all posted as that is going along. Right. If I was putting a budget tonight together, I would have used 15%. Okay. I'm hoping it's going to come in less than that, but I feel pretty comfortable that we shouldn't be more than 15%.
Okay, so next last question. Ms. Callaway in the past has had a figure that showed dollars on one axis, the y-axis, and departments on the x-axis that showed the allocation per department. And I think that visual aspect really helps us understand the allocation of budget by department. Right. Now, obviously, the social services school takes a big chunk of that, so we don't want to do that. But the budget that more than likely this board will be looking at very carefully are going to be those aspects, which is a very,
right.
part of the budget.
We start getting, if we did the pie chart, we started getting just the line. Right. So we had to do it differently.
When you draw it out and and I know you had that figure last year, it really helped a lot to show across that axis. Right. By department, we can see actually what departments do get.
Yes.
And this is the minor thing. So we did talk about the sanitary districts.
Yes.
Have we ever talked about revising the lines based on GIS analysis? Because right now those lines were hand-drawn, and I know that there's some properties that are cut in half that are, some part of the property isn't, the other is. It's a minor thing, but I know we had talked about using GIS to really fine-tune the lines of what is the sanitary districts, both at the courthouse. It means minor things, but it's more facilitating a more optimal and more precise location where those district lines are.
I think this is a situation where we ask where Mr. Wilmot will dust off a memo that he has sent before, because this has been a problem. We talked about this last Friday. It's been brought up year after year. And I was talking to Ms. Legg, kind of teasing with her, saying, like, you're going to solve this, right? Like she's got the time to. But
she's got a sharper pencil.
Yeah.
Well, if you use a pencil, that's a wider versus a sharper.
We definitely need to look at it. It has been looked at. There's been no solution that's been brought forward. I think we need to truly go back to what Mr. Wilmot has done in the past. I pulled out my file in my office, and it's this thick on sanitary districts.
I mean, this is a minor thing with regard to the big budget that we're dealing with, but I think it's an issue that needs to be resolved sooner or later.
Well, we have people who are, I'm almost positive that this is, that I know this has been stated before, they are receiving services and not paying. I don't think we have the opposite, but we have people, because of the way the new subdivisions went across and just the way the lines are. So I don't know whether it's going to be a scrap it and start it all over again. We also mentioned in one of the board meetings that in some areas we may not have enough street lights, and it may be a time that you might want to be talking to the public and saying, if you're in a sanitary district, are there areas that you're concerned about? I know some of them are maintenance ones, because when I left a meeting the other day, there were 3 lights out in a row on Main Street, so we need to make sure the lights are running. But in general, there may be some other ways that you might want to expand your sanitary district. So I think it's probably going to be a post-budget item, but I think it would be great to have that once and for all resolved.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Legg, just a question. I'm looking at utilities capital plan projects beginning in FY '27.
Yes,
Main Street?
is not on the list
Yeah, I
as
know
of
that.
right now. So that would be another $4 million.
Where is it?
Nowhere yet.
I didn't think so. That's why I was asking.
Nowhere yet. And doing a project like that is likely phased, of course. You know, we can't tear up the entirety of Main Street all at once. And that initial $4 million was a very high-level estimate based on some pricing templates that we've put together with current projects. So that could go up or down, but that has not been put into this budget yet.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And where were the 4 breaks that we've had this past year? Were there 4?
No, so 4 since I've been here.
Okay.
The 2 that we've had within 2 months of each other were right in front of the church.
Right.
Short lane's a whole other topic.
That is another topic, but
and
I
then
think that's
further
being
down.
covered under warranty work right now.
And then we had one a little bit closer down towards the circle this way, and then there was the one New Year's Eve, technically before I started, on Main Street in front of T.C. Walker, right past T.C. Walker.
I just wondered where. Thank you. I just wanted to ask. Ms. Steele, I do have another question, Katie. Katie?
Should have waited till she said that.
I was going to wait. It's just like, when I go.
That's okay. I've been sitting all day, so I could use the steps.
I've asked this question before. I'm not sure I've ever been articulate enough to understand what I really want to say. If I were going to draw a sharp pencil, around all of the properties which could receive water, how many are there versus how many are hooked up, getting a meter?
So that, I don't know, is the short answer. And I've been working with GIS to identify all of the parcels that are within 200 feet of a water line, because by code, those are the ones that will need to connect. However, a lot of those parcels are vacant. So, for example, in a neighborhood in Hayes, the likelihood of you having an entire neighborhood hooked up except 1 or 2 is highly unlikely. Okay. So it's going to be more of those one-offs. So for example, on 17, which I don't do zoning right now, but if there, I'm in it all, and I'm not doing anything, I promise. If any of those were single-family home and for whatever reason needed to connect, so we have not identified those. We're more likely to find those types of issues versus, again, those in the neighborhood that have refused.
How many of those that pay $20 a month that don't get water? Because that might answer part of the
That's
question.
another, that was the next part. But no, you're fine, JJ, you're fine.
There are a significant number, and the reason I can't give you that total number is because last time we looked at this, we were looking at how many accounts paid just that bare minimum. Unfortunately, when we looked at that number, that was also because we had not put in the new meters yet, and we knew that we had a significant number of meters that may have been broken as well. So, but there are quite a few that pay just the minimum.
Ms. Legg, to go with Dr. Leming's question, instead of doing parcels, you might want to do buildable lots, because I know down at the point in other areas, the lots are too small to build on, and you have one person owning multiple lots.
So you would only have one lot there versus, one buildable lot versus, instead of saying there's 4, there's actually only 1
Right, okay.
when it gets to the,
Yeah, I've been working with GIS to try to identify all of those because it, should the board ever decide to mandate at some point in the future, and if there are those that are not hooked up that could be.
Can I chase Dr. Orth's question just a little bit
Sure.
further? Because I'm getting there. I mean, it's coming clearer to me. So the 13% increase that's currently going to occur unless an act of God, does that apply to the $20 per month people?
It would apply to every rate tier that we have. So for example, if your minimum bill is $23.01 for water, that will now go to $26.
Okay.
So that 13% increase is applied to every single rate tier that we have.
Okay, that's what I want to. And I'll ask my last question about utilities, and then I'll move on. Do you have any idea? You may not. Do you have any idea how many people have paid the tap fee and never tapped?
I don't know what records we have in our software system on that, but that would, and actually we don't tend to record the connection fee until they have established an account. But I believe if they have paid that fee, we likely have started sending them a bill. There may be some special cases because that fee should be paid when they get their building permit. So there could be some special cases where, if you're building a house, you paid your fee and then you decided, I don't feel like doing that in the next 5 years. We've had that connection fee, but not actually established an account because we haven't inspected it yet.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead. Hey, one more. Wait until she sits down.
Should I sit next to Ted?
Remember that grant program? How many people have taken or participated in the grant program?
So
for sewer?
we've spoken to about 5 to 10 different residents. I think we've had 2 that are in the process of going through HRSD now. They've already connected. Some of the folks that were very interested in this program when it first came out, they're still in the process of getting estimates from contractors, and that those estimates are wide-ranging, and so there is a little bit of sticker shock in some cases. But there have been a couple. Okay, thanks.
Katie, my question is not for you. So you can sit down. Ms. Calloway, my question is for you. Thank you.
That's the most I've ever laughed in a budget presentation.
How long have we done this carryover for the school cafeteria, and how many years have they not used it?
We have not. Fiscal year 26 was the first year they ever requested it.
Okay, just curious about that.
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
While Ms. Legg is sitting down, she can stay down. I want to better understand your conversation you had about the 1.5% schools sales tax fund and I presume the fund balance that's there, you didn't use those words, but you said there's sufficient money in that account to pay for the body tot renovation or just the HVAC?
Body tot renovation.
That's what I thought.
Including the HVAC. There's over $16 million, so it's 1%
Right.
that goes into that fund of our sales, of the sales tax, and it's just over 16 million. It will accumulate more as we continue. And so actually, we've worked a lot with Davenport, and when I initially said, hey, we want to do this, and then they sent back just last week the scenarios, they were like, we don't really need you to do a deal with us on this. I think we're working with them on plenty of other things, but they showed the various scenarios which I would like to provide to the board, and then align that also with, I've been working on a worksheet where I could align that with any additional eligible projects, which I've sent over to Mr. Wilmot. So I also sent the whole capital plan to Mr. Wilmot to confirm what projects qualified.
Yeah, I know. One of the questions I had is that, okay, we're doing really well in annual collections, correct? And which has given us that opportunity to even consider additional projects, which we're doing. So projections for the future. I mean, that's something that I know we talked about because that will play a huge role in our ability to deal with additional projects that I know are going to come along.
Yes.
So is there a way we can have a little graph that shows projection with, that little graph that separates one from the expected versus actual? That might help us, even though it's hypothetical.
All right, so explain again what kind of.
So you got a graph that shows actual income.
Okay.
And then that line would deviate with projected, because right now we're getting more than what we've projected. We said, $5 million a year, we're getting more.
Okay, compared to Davenport's original
It might just
projections?
be interesting to see, because while this board may not be able to participate, because we may all be either gone or whatever, but I think it's good to have in our pocket what we might be expecting, because it has been doing well every single year.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. And I've looked at that analysis of and I'll put it into a more workable format. That is why I think it definitely warrants time for the board to consider once I'm able to provide the scenarios and information, because it is a finite source of funding. I think it was 2041. And so if we are to use large portions of that cash now, we do have to start planning now for a different type of funding source for future school projects.
Correct. Ms. Steele, did you have something? I saw you.
Thank you. I was going to ask and just clarify that you were only looking at the sales tax and not the retirement of debt for the other school projects. And
the revenues.
Mr. Chairman?
Anyway, yes.
Can I follow with Ms. Lang?
Hold on. JJ, are you done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure if he had finished before.
So I'm looking at, I think this was the approved recommendations list.
What page?
Yes, sir.
I'm on page 48.
Thank you.
I think that's where I am.
Yes. Thank you, Trish.
So I'm going to ask it again. You're telling me that the body top renovation with HVAC could possibly be fully cash funded with the fund balance that's currently in that fund, if we so choose to do that?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to hear you say that one more time. My next question, Mr. Chairman, I'm back on, I'll get you a page in just a minute. Yeah, there we go. Am I correct that the mosquito control fund is like 1 mil or something?
For
0.01?
It's 1 penny. Yes.
It's a penny.
It's a penny.
Okay. And how about the sanitary district?
Same. Each of those are 1 penny per $100 of assessed value.
Okay, thank you. Scooting back to, I'm getting there. I'm looking at page 30 and 31. 30 and 31. So you show our current rate of personal property tax is $3.10 per hundred. Would it be possible to generate the locality comparison like you did on the other ones for that?
Yes, absolutely. That'll be part of your appendix.
And then I'm also going to ask you to do the same thing on 31.
Yes, sir.
And maybe if you wouldn't mind, besides this, the locality comparison rate, the size of the population for that locality.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Callaway, it might be also helpful to include what type of services they offer that we don't.
Okay.
And I will mention, if I can, Mr. Chair, we do have these charts, we just didn't get them out for the appendix, and we need to update them, but those are the standard things that really do help you to see where we are and what, and so we do add in the extra cost.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Callaway, I'm not sure you're in on this, but maybe you were. I'm on page 27. There was a conversation that we can raise the meals tax, and I think I inferred from I'm asking whether I heard correctly. The cap on that for us is 6%. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so hypothetically, you could go up 2% on our existing 4%.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, probably my last question. When I had looked at and I'll direct this to Ms. Steele because I think you alluded to it. When I glanced, and I didn't read it well, and I'm not a lawyer, but I looked at the cigarette tax portion of the code, and it looked like you had to have an approval from the Commonwealth to do that. So there are authorities that...
There are. You cannot do it on your own. You have to be a part of an
read.
authority. So the Northern Neck has an authority, and that's who we looked at joining with when we first proposed it, and Middlesex is the only one on the Middle Peninsula that did it.
Okay. My last comment, and Ms. Steele, you and I have had this conversation a little bit in the past, and I'm going to flesh it out, not necessarily to be argumentative, but I want the general public to be aware that the Commonwealth of Virginia administers a health insurance plan for localities called the Local Choice, administered by the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Health, I believe, TLC it's called, I think. And I don't know that we've ever been a part of that, but could you just address why that's not on the table, so to speak?
Yes, thank you. And when you first brought it up, all I knew is it had been looked at and it wasn't possible, and so I thought it was a code situation. And as soon as I started exploring, the first things are that the state of Virginia offers this wonderful opportunity for localities. And I was like, well, why aren't we on it? Well, then it's its own special plan, and there are 5 plans that are available for localities in the state of Virginia that are all for self-insured localities. And we do not have a reserve fund that allows us to become self-insured. That's something that could be worked towards in the future, but we're not anywhere near that. So those 5 aren't available to us. There are 2 fully insured programs, and one of them is limited to the Northern Virginia area, and then the other one is a Centera HMO program, and I was trying to think what it used to be called, but that may still be an option. That may be one of the ones that somebody's going to say will administer for you that we'll have in that RFP. But in the past, when we've looked at Centera, we did not have enough providers here to meet the needs for our employees, for the number of doctors and things. It would require a lot of going across the river. So I would say it's a never. And I think it is one of the things that we want to look at on the proposals that were submitted to see if anything has changed.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. I just wanted to have that conversation out in the open. Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for Ms. Steele. On the civic organization requests, and I'm not here to add to the list or vet the list, I agree with you that there needs to be some kind of policy about a policy against which a civic organization petitions the board for funds. I mean, there just ought to be not, but I don't see any food banks on here.
They have not asked.
Okay.
So everybody who's asked for this year's on here, and Ms. Callaway may remember there's been a couple that have dropped off that we never funded on. I think they just kind of felt like they weren't going to get it, so they went away.
And Ms. Callaway, the equalization rate on tonight's discussion is 0.537?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Nicosia.
Oh. Letters from Joe. Ms. Bonniville, if I may, I want to say a couple things about that $450,000. I am very glad to hear that that is sitting there. That was a long debated issue last year, and it boiled down to very quickly the free lunches that our students were getting and how we wanted to continue that program. However, it was not cost revenue to the county, and it was causing Central Food Service to basically go broke. So that was a allocation that we gave them to keep them afloat, and I am pleased to hear that they have rebounded to the place that they still have that. I will say to the board, the quality of service and the quality of food provided by our staff has greatly improved. So I just wanted to put that plug in and give you some context on that. That was all based on that free lunch that they had been getting during COVID.
No, absolutely, I appreciate it. I just found it interesting to, I mean, that was what it was there for, but it's never been used. I think that's great, so. I'll ask one more question, if I can.
Yeah, Ms. Mullins.
60 to 90 days with the bond rating, where are we at? Do we know where we're at with that?
Yes, we do.
And I only bring that up because you talked about, staying at 16% versus budging on that and where we would lie with that during this budget process.
Yes, we've asked Davenport to come to your budget work session on March 26th to provide you with a summary of the banks that have proposed. I believe bank proposals are due on the 10th. I think it's tomorrow. I've got a lot of dates in my head, but I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow. So they're going to compile those for us, and then they're going to present them and let the board decide. We'd be looking for direction that night on whether the board would like to proceed with a bank financing, in which case we would not need a bond rating, or whether we'd like to go out and do the public sale and the bond rating. So we need direction in March on that, because the bond rating is 12 to 16 weeks from the time that we say, yes, we're going to do this. It's an extensive and expensive process. So we'll be provide that more to come on the 26th.
Okay, I guess, because you had mentioned that it would change how we could operate if we stay at that 16% or we drop down.
So
that could be impressionable upon our bond rating. And I'm also thinking like for future CIP projects, if we go that route.
Yes, and so the fund balance policy currently is the 14 to 16%, and we've historically used everything over 16% because you also don't want to hang on to a bunch of extra tax dollars. The direction I've received from Davenport is that more is generally better. It's not, but we don't know. And they do look at, are you adhering to your policy? They also will look at, are you using your fund balance only for one-time items? Are you using it, if you're using your fund balance for operating, that's not good. And so we have generally been very good about that. And actually I don't believe we've ever actually used our fund balance for operating since I've been here. We did budget it one time that way, but I don't believe we ever had to dip into it. So we've done very well with that. It's just, you don't know until you get into that rating call. And we're thankful for our financial advisors who help to set us up the best possible, but it would not be advisable to bring it all the way down to 15% likely if we were going to proceed with a public sale and get a bond rating.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nicosia, then Dr.
Ms. Legg, you don't have to move. You really don't.
Just coming out.
I actually, they let you sit down, so I'll let you rest a minute. All right, so you said that Main Street is not in the plan. It's not there, according to what you told Dr. Leming. However, that kind of makes me feel a little bit uneasy because a lot of the recent troubles that we've been having are right on Main Street. So I don't know exactly when we should fit that into the plan, but I think that we should at least investigate it. I know, one good break, one really good break is gonna set us way back.
Sure.
And huh?
That'd be a bad break.
Yes, it would. And so, you know, not to push priorities, but I would like to see the dollar figures on that, because we're catching them and we're Band-Aiding them. But there's going to be one we won't be able to put a Band-Aid on, and that's the one that scares me.
Can I inject with him? Is this the oldest section?
This is one of the oldest. We've got up here, plus we also have down at Gloucester Point.
Yeah. But,
Right.
Yeah, I thought this was the oldest
Right,
section.
so some of the projects that are in the capital plan are Gloucester Point projects, and they're more neighborhood specific than main roads. I can certainly look at how we might phase Main Street, because again, it's such a large project, it wouldn't be in 1 year. And we can run those numbers and see what that would look like if we say, okay, we're gonna do phase 1 in FY '27, and based on the proposed budget of using a potential meals tax increase, that would decrease that available funding more.
Dr. Leming?
What he said, by the way, but I had a question for Ms. Callaway. So I don't have the ability to go back and read the tape, but I'm relatively certain that there was a conversation made at a previous board meeting about sort of a time is of the essence conversation. And my impression was that the board authorized you or your team to do two things simultaneously. Number one, send the request for bank proposals out and simultaneously obtain the bond ratings, so that when that information came back to the board, we would have essentially a rough comparison of what bank financing would cost versus public issuance would cost. I think that's my pretty clear memory about simultaneous, time is of the essence, so that we didn't have another extended delay. I'm concerned that I may have misheard you, but I think I heard tonight that the bonding process hasn't started.
It has not. You have not misheard. And that is based on direction from Davenport. So it took a time for them to reach out to the bond rating agencies. They obtained quotes back from S&P and Moody's. And those quotes are at about $100,000, which I'm not confident. Prior, we thought maybe 30,000, I think is what we heard.
I think the testimony we heard before was 30,000 apiece, so it would be roughly about $60,000, I believe it.
Yes.
You are correct.
And, and so the direction I had from Davenport is this is an expensive, lengthy, arduous process. And the purpose of pulling the bank financing proposals up earlier was for the board to be able to decide, do you want to put all of that effort and funding into a bond rating if you get an attractive bank proposal?
And if I can, there was another point to that they stated that you may recall. They already anticipate what our rating is going to be, and they said they would build in what
single and double A.
Right, so a double A and a single A, and they know what those rates are, so that when they bring you the bank rates, they're going to be able to say, is it worth it or not, before you spend $100,000 plus all the time. So that's what he had said before, is he could tell you what it was going to be.
So let me tell you what I don't like about this conversation. So we get the bank rates back. We don't really like them. How long is it going to take to get a rating?
We'll have the
We're
funding.
going to tack this amount of time on. The purpose of that resolution at that meeting was to avoid this conversation. I'm relatively certain. 100%. The purpose was, and I understood there has a fiscal note. You actually, I believe Mr. Wilmot may have brought up the question to you. Ms. Callaway, do you think that you have the money to cover the bond rating? I believe that was again, I don't have the tape in front of me, but I'm pretty good at this. So I'm just concerned, you know, one of the things, I'm not fussing at you, by the way, I apologize, just let me say that. But there are a lot of people who continue to be frustrated by these 12 to 16 weeks that just seem to get added on to another 12 to 16 weeks. And I'm fairly certain the board was comfortable with proceeding in a bifurcated, simultaneous fashion. I may be wrong. You may have actually questioned that. I can't remember, but that'd be fine if you did. But I'm just expressing my concern about hearing that sequenced delay. I don't believe that's what the board intended.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I think when we were looking at the bond ratings versus what the anticipated, like at that point, the bond ratings were more attractive. It would be more fiscally responsible. There was less associated with it when it came to if we paid it off early. And I think that's why we kind of went in the direction we did when we kind of requested that. And I 100% assumed that he was going to start tomorrow. I think when he walked off the podium, we'll start with this tomorrow. So that's kind of dismayed me a little bit.
We did engage with the rating agencies actually the next day, and we've talked with them, and the feedback that we received is that we need a structure because they want documents to be able to rate the deal. So there are two different types of ratings that we'll get. The county will get a rating on it, the county, and then the deal will get rated. In order to rate the deal, we have to know the ownership and the details to be able to provide Moody's and S&P the documentation in draft form so that they can provide that rating. I did ask Davenport, can we start on the county rating and provide all that information? And he said it would be fully duplicative of the effort to try to go through the process twice.
Were we aware that there was a rating on the deal? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought that would come later, was how I read that conversation.
No, we are close to being able to bring something to Mr. Wilmot and the rest of the board, Dr. Leming and I, on that deal. We got one little hurdle from our group, and we should have that probably to everyone, depending on what Dr. Leming says, either tonight or tomorrow. And I'll share that with the entire board and Mr. Wilmot once I get it. Questions, more questions on budget topics? Mr. Hutson, would you like to take your turn? You didn't make a sigh or a movement.
Ms. Steele, on the steps. So right now, if you've been an employee over a year or a year, on July 1st, you get a 0.66% step increase every year that you're here, correct?
Yes.
So in essence, if we go with the 2.8% COLA with the 1% step adjustment, anybody here over a year would get a 3.8%.
For those employees, yes.
There you go, we'll give Tony his back. That's why I didn't know. You didn't have your microphone.
Your turn.
Ms. Hanson.
So, Ms. Steele, when I was watching and observing the budget from the cold seats back there last year, am I incorrect that there were raises given last year to certain employees, to staff?
So we had a COLA and we had a study that was done, and so we normally do things on July 1, but because we had the study going on, I think it was in September?
September.
So it was brought back to the board and the board approved it. So we had in last year's budget a holding amount, not knowing what the final total was going to be. And that worked out okay. We were surprised because we were afraid we were going to be short, but it worked out. And so normally the localities around us, and trying to, again, stay competitive, we listen to what they're doing for their cost of living adjustments. And no, we're not doing any kind of merit. We do encourage people to work up their career ladders, and so some individuals are better at doing that and have more opportunities maybe in the field that they're in. But we are looking at the COLAs that are being offered around, and that will be announced more in the next couple of months or the next month or so. But what I'm hearing is most localities are just like the state, one side of the General Assembly, they're looking at a 3%. Some also provide bonuses, some others do merit, like the town of West Point does a merit. So we kind of just look around, but what normally Gloucester County has done has been a COLA of some amount to say, your salary is keeping in line with inflation, and then the study was a significant change.
Well, my other concern is if you're talking about a 15% increase in cost for health insurance, and you're wanting to get a pay raise. One of the complaints I've heard, and I wasn't sitting in the hot seat, so I don't know. I would hate to see us giving them a pay raise and then eat it up with their health insurance. And then we have to consider that, because if we give them a raise and there's an increase, like I said, we don't want it to eat up their increase. That's extra money that we're going to be needing to look at. Am I wrong?
What we have done is we look at the highest healthcare plan and the lowest paid employee and see what the impact would be. So what the worst case scenario would be, so we can, and we do look at more than just one, but we always say that, what's that worst case scenario? Depending upon how the years have gone, we have come back to the board and asked to have the board pay an additional contribution. Normally, it's like if we get an 8% increase, the county pays 8% more, the employees pay 8% more collectively. And the individual employee doesn't generally pay because that, if they're under an HSA. So it all depends, but the whole total of all the employees has to make up the 8%. When we've had years that it was going to eat up the COLA, and we had that problem, we came back to the board and we said, and the board has approved it. It's not been, I don't think, maybe a couple times in the last decade or so that that's happened, but we will definitely be watching for that. And we know that that's a concern of the employees. They do not want to say, I didn't keep up because my health care took what I would have had that would have covered my inflation.
Can I add on to that real quick? Sure. So are we doing increases based on department, or are we doing increases on the general workforce? Like, I know that a lot of localities will do public safety, will get more in order to stay competitive, or are we just doing it across the board? Is it just certain departments that are getting increases?
The COLA isn't across the board because the idea is it is the cost of living adjustment that is what's happening. The law enforcement, we have made adjustments to their pay grades that was done with the Bolton study. That was pretty significant because we were behind in some and we needed to get caught up. And then the STEP program, that they have the ability to get a 5% raise just with the sort of, you're here another year, you get that STEP, and then they would get the COLA as well. So they do have an opportunity for more than other employees.
How does that work, though? Like, is the guys in public utilities and girls in public utilities getting raises just like finance or your office, or you see what I'm saying? Like, is it across the board thing, or is it varying?
Well, the Bolton study was supposed to get it's always across the board, but the Bolton study was supposed to get us where we needed to be. Nothing's perfect, and other people were, you're chasing what other localities are doing. So, Ms. Legg did an independent study, came to HR, showed us the results, and we were behind to a couple of the positions. I want to say it was like about $13,000 that we had to put in. So we put that into effect this year. Like, it was 2 weeks ago or whatever, we said March because we were so far behind. And that is incorporated into next year. So their grades, both on the distribution side and the water treatment plant side, but I think more on the distribution, but they were behind where they should have been. So this is the case. It wasn't much, and we had the funds to do it. She could balance her enterprise budget, and we do not. We have people who are offering her employees jobs while they're in the field, and so we're really aware of that's a tough one. There are other positions that are Commonwealth attorney. I've done some emails. You all know that's a tough one too. So we've done some regrading and looking at. We've always had, like, when somebody leaves, short of having the Bolton study, which we haven't done one for many years, but when somebody leaves, we take that opportunity. That's like go out and make sure that we can't do we don't have a compensation employee. We don't want to pay for a study every year, but we do pick and choose. And if we hear complaints, if we hear that we're behind, we go do our own internal study to see if there's an adjustment that's needed.
Are we comparing ourselves to the localities we're losing people to, or are we comparing ourselves to like localities?
So we do a little bit of both. Isle of Wight is our most like comparable because Isle of Wight is similar to us in size and budget, and they are on the fringe of higher paying localities. So they're we normally are right in line with Isle of Wight. We do not pay what Newport News and Hampton and James City County and York pay, and we have a formula that we look at, what are they paying, and then what is the sort of Gloucester rate. Seldom would we ever be at the same rate that they are. We're just not. I mean, our county employees don't make what they make over there.
So, I'd like to go back to the healthcare issue.
Sure.
One of the things, because I'm an insurance agent, not all insurance policies are the same. Just because you get the cheaper chicken doesn't mean the coverage too. And teachers, and that's a part of our package that we offered our teachers to keep and retain them. So when you're out there shopping, are you just looking for the cheaper chicken that might not be as quality? Because I mean, that will change the cost of what it's going to be. And then, like I know with the shipyard, they kind of offer, when they do present the packages to the employees, it's good, better, best based on their needs. So that depends on how much how much the shipyard's going to pay for that particular type of property. And so
we want a variety as much as possible of plans that meet individual needs. We have pushed more with the HSA in providing a contribution of $100 a month to go into their HSA bank. That is the lowest paying plan for the employer, for us. But we've also been advised, don't push it too hard, because if you don't have very many people who are in the other programs, they'll eliminate and not offer them. In years looking in long range in the past, we've had issues where we've had to adjust the pharmaceutical part of it. And so we look at all of it. And we do hire a consultant. That's one of the things we're using, an expert in the field to help us with that. And there's a committee, our purchasing, HR, Ms. Calloway, that reviews those plans. So that'll be coming up very soon, and we can keep you all informed of it. But we would assume we're going to have a product very similar to what we have right now. We're not hearing a lot of complaints. The times that we hear from employees, and we do hear from them when it comes to healthcare, the biggest thing we hear is if their doctor's no longer going to be on our plan. Right. And y'all know many localities face that. They face that across the river too.
Well, I think we need to know up front too. Like I said, I don't want to see the COLA eat up the employees by the benefits. I don't think it's fair, and retention is important to keep good quality teachers here. And if we're not offering compensated packages, that just keep getting eat up by healthcare. So we have to, I'd like to see the numbers of what that looks like when that gets to that point, and how much there's going to be a variance in that.
Definitely do
cost.
That. Definitely. Thank you.
Who's got one?
Mr. Hutson.
I'm going to give us a chance to hear more citizen comments soon. But looking at the boats, based on, I believe, what you've received, we have roughly $62 million worth of boats in the county, based on the dollar and everything else. And you've got localities that have a boat fee and a boat tax. Is there any way you could determine for the boat fee and leave it how it's currently defined as boat 1, boat 2, go down, how it's rated, figure out where different localities have the boat fee and compare those numbers?
We do have that. We have them by the tons and things that they separate for the different and the amount of feet of the boat. So they're different for localities. Some of them have only 2 rates. Like I think it's Norfolk. It's once you get to one, it's that for no matter how big it is. And Virginia Beach has a huge spread in their boat fees.
We don't have it. I know, but if you could provide that.
Yes.
Okay.
And that way we could compare what it would cost for somebody with a skiff versus the lower fee, where it makes actual sense for it.
And I'm going to add one else in there for you, Maria. Our working orderman, how's that going to affect that? How we can look at that? Yeah.
We can
just wanna make sure.
exempt them.
Exactly, yeah. I just want to make sure it's like a farm use thing. Exactly, okay. Cool.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dr. Leming.
Ms. Steele, you tickled, I'm not sure how far you want to get into the weeds here, but you've tickled my interest. So if I'm a county employee and I elect to select a health insurance plan that has a high deductible and that's backed by a health savings account, because I believe those two walk together, the county is going to contribute $1,200 a year to my HSA. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that's pretty standard around from the other localities too.
I have no criticism of that. I just, wanted to.
No, I think it's a good thing.
I wanted to bring that out. And then the employees who don't select the HSA plan don't get that.
Correct. They pay a higher premium and the county pays a lot more as well. The employer's share is so much lower on an HSA that it's justifiable to provide that $1,200. And also looking out for our employees first, and although we're very family oriented, but the rate for an employee only, if you go on an HSA, there is no premium.
So, again, I'm going down the rabbit hole. I can feel myself slipping. Do you have any idea what percentage of the employees have chosen a high deductible plan married with an HSA? And is that $1,200 incentive enough?
I think it's pretty standard. I'm not saying that we couldn't do better, but I know we know the percentage.
Ms. Hanson.
I understand what it is. I'm trying to drive to a question of.
I'm sure in our RFP we listed the percentage that we have.
I believe we have, it's close to, don't quote me, but it's a majority. I believe it's about 80% are on a high deductible plan.
Okay. I guess my question really revolves around if that, there's method to my devious madness here. If the incentive were more, would we be able to pull more people in to that HSA high deductible plan and lower our costs?
There's a possibility of that, but then it would more than likely get rid of the lower deductible plan so that employees wouldn't have that option.
And there's a cap too.
I did analyze that heavily last year, but then was told by our insurance consultant to stop.
Any other questions or comments for this from the board for this evening? I just have two quick things. Can we double check the amount of the FMRR reserve?
I checked it on this. Do you want the total amount? It would be, because I left the remainder on that slide.
But I need to know the total amount that we have currently versus what was presented in our CAFR.
Okay.
Because those numbers have been different.
It's 829, 499 plus, yes, I mean, I can get it to you. It's 1.57.
Yeah, but in the CAFR, it's 1.6 something.
Right, and then we carried over for the sheriff's vehicles. So the ACFR will deposit anything unspent as of 6:30, and then the sheriff had vehicles that were still needing.
Being purchased after
right,
that? Okay.
That had active POs at June 30th, so that differential is simply the carryover.
Perfect. Then the last one I have is, can we just double check the amount of the SROs? We have two different amounts in the presentation.
Yes.
Page 6 and 40, I believe. Not 6, hold on. I just had it, page 10 and 40. It's not a big number, but it's still, just make sure we get the same number.
Probably is the step, because we initially missed the step on the, and then, and so I'll confirm that for you. If I may, I had a couple of minor corrections as well that we caught as we were going. Would you like me to mention those, or just?
Sure.
Okay, so page 13, the external organization contributions, When we were reviewing this, we noted that the Middle Peninsula Juvenile Detention Commission of $182,000 was included in partners, and we thought that was wrong. It's a required service, and we moved it to required services, and I did not fix this particular chart. So it's just a categorical that I will correct. Should not make a huge change in that orange chunk of the pie, but we will fix that for you. Then the last are just verb where we didn't change something that was in let's see, page 36, slide 36. The number of local transfer is 2,679,172 as represented in the chart, and the words at the bottom were not updated as they should have been. So that 2434 should be the 2679, so we'll correct that. And then there was one more. The Sanitary District 1 on page 43, same thing or similar thing. There is no anticipated addition to fund balance in 2027, and that the verbiage at the bottom should be deleted. So those are the fixes that I caught as going through these that will make updates.
And then the other thing for page 19, we have general property taxes. Can we break that out into real estate and then personal property?
Yes.
Just so we can see both as opposed to the aggregate. That'd be great. Okay.
The majority is in public service corporation. Do you want me to add that line? The majority of that increase is from public service corporation taxes, which is in its own revenue line. So break out those three.
That's fine, yes. Just so we can see
where it's coming from.
Because it took me like 3 times doing the math to go, wait a second, my math isn't mathing because that's more than one fund going into that. So
I've had a few of those moments.
Yes, the more you look at numbers, the more times you think this isn't working. So
yeah, I'll break
if we can break those out, that'd be fantastic. Okay. Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, one more thing.
Yes, Mr. Hutson.
Before next Tuesday, can you get the schools to get an idea on the buses?
Yes.
Because I know that it's increased this year.
We asked for the age of buses
But more, I mean, they're asking for a tremendous, since we've been on the board, it has increased tremendously. And I know it costs more for buses, but if we could move some of that out a little bit. I'm looking for the page and I can't find it.
Oh, the recommendations for buses
Yeah.
is towards the end. Yes, and we also spoke with Mr. Hartley and Dr. Gladue and asked again to bring back the leasing consideration to see could we save some money, even though it doesn't make sense in the county fleet, but if buses are going to have to be in there at this level every year, perhaps a leasing option is more feasible. It is
48.
Page 49, 48, 49.
Yep.
Because that was in the 6s originally. It's doubled. And this is a fewer number of buses too.
Oh, yeah.
They just cost more.
I know.
Dr. Orth?
Mention this.
Yes.
But also, I think, yeah, as we talk about, Ms. Steele has asked whether the board members would want members of the departments to come. I know in the past, we've said no, but we have 3 new members that may not fully appreciate or understand the mechanics of some of our departments. So it might be good for you guys to think about who you would want here to answer questions you might have for specific departments.
Yep. And you can provide that after tonight or in an email, or be prepared at our joint meeting. If there's anybody we try to want to get there on the 26th, you know, we had to work with their schedules as well, but it would be nice to have the ones we want there when we want them. Dr. Leming.
Ms. Callaway, I'm on the topic of the SROs.
Okay.
How many SROs does that pay for?
3.
Okay. And Is this $310,000, which was previously funded by a grant for 4 years, and now is going to come directly from our local funds, is that not just a transfer to the sheriff's, an increase in the transfer to the sheriff's department?
The reason I left him in the grant fund is because we potentially are going to receive grant funding. So we are applying, in the process of applying for that grant, and DCGAS, the Department of Criminal Justice Services, has said it's possible that there could be leftover funding. So it would be generally that they just move back to the general fund, but I've left them there for consistency.
To be determined at the moment.
Okay.
TBD.
But this is addition. These are addition.
Yeah, please, Mr. Hutson.
I'm going to stop the sidebar.
My question was, I thought that part of the sheriff's deputies' salaries were state reimbursed.
They are. These particular are not.
These are additional SRO officers that we hired for additional schools through grants that were not partially funded by the state because they were fully funded by the state. And now that the grant has run out, we have to cover that cost.
Okay, maybe my fellow supervisor is saying we have to eat the full freight, which is very possible. But I'm asking, once they're deputized, they're members of the Gloucester Sheriff's Department just like everybody else, aren't they?
But the compensation board does not provide a one-for-one salary. They don't provide that same number of.
That's actually what I was asking. Thank you.
Thing. Anything else from the board members? We have a joint meeting with the school board on March the 17th. You want to put that up, Ms. Cronin?
Here, I got it, Trish.
We will set our tax rate for advertisement that evening. I'm just going to go through the March dates in public tonight, and then we'll have a budget work session on Thursday, March the 26th, and then a budget town hall on, I believe it's a Monday, March the 30th. And then we will go over other dates in April following that, and of course, we'll have another regular board meeting prior to that as well. But I just wanted to get that out there. Question on April 21st. Do we have to consider, I know typically we don't have, and I know it's a different election than it's not there's not an election for people on the ballot, but do we need to double check that, the April 21st date, as far as maybe rescheduling that work session?
I think that's up to you all. If you don't want to meet on that night or that election day, and it's a regular work session.
I know.
So if you want to change your work schedule, the one thing that staff going through, and Ms. Cronin working very hard, and Ms. Calloway too, reading the code to make sure we were meeting the sequencing. So we thought you're already going to be meeting that day, that would be and meet the criteria for the equalization. But if you don't want to meet that day, we will find you could do it on the 23rd or. I just know that in the past, in November, we don't have our first meeting on election night, but there's typically a lot more items on the ballot for those, and I was just curious if there was a reasoning and everything else. I just don't want to step on any toes if we need to. I think if the board members want to tell you how they feel about it, we could change your schedule from the possible budget session to changing your work session to that 23rd, since you're already going to be meeting 2 days later. But I think that's how they provide you feedback of what you'd like. We'll make it work, whatever you want to do.
But I also think when the calendar was developed,
there was
the election.
No, we had no idea. And again, it falls on your regular work session, and it wasn't like the November Tuesday. Correct. No, I know. Dr. Orth.
Yeah, with regard to the deliverables that we will see, the Excel spreadsheet, for the new board members, from what what we have had in the past, will we see a tax portion of that? You can change the tax rate so you can see how we can manipulate the numbers to either balance the budget, or you'll see all the additional items. So it's a workable spreadsheet that allows you to really do some things with it that help you understand whether we're going to go up or down or whatever, especially with the fact that we're equalizing the rate down to 53.
It will, and there will be more columns for Ms. Callaway to add with the different taxes, unless you all say, don't bother. If we start hearing, don't look at this tax or that tax, we won't put them in. Otherwise, we'll put them in as we are.
All right, well, if you all have any consideration on the 21st, let me know in the next week, and we can make that change if needed, but as for now, we'll just go as we have planned. So with that, if we are done with this topic, we will then move on to item B of our regular agenda. I added this after our discussion at our last board meeting per recommendation of Mr. Wilmot, because it seemed that there was some thought to take action, and I thought that I would bring it back tonight in case someone did want to action this item to move forward.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my understanding at the moment is that we cannot file a willy-nilly file an amicus brief with anyone. That in order to file an amicus brief, we have to ask the court's permission to see if they will allow us to file an amicus brief. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was my motion, which was to file a motion with the court to see whether or not the Supreme Court of Virginia would accept an amicus brief on the board's behalf. I'll again make that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion by the board members?
Can we just make sure we're clear, given the comments that we've had, both here tonight, the ones that came in from phone and everything, about exactly what we're doing, so they understand what is happening. It sounds like there's a lot of misinformation, misinterpretation of what we are doing in this particular step, okay? And I think that needs to be abundantly clear of what this motion is, because people will automatically assume that, depending on how we vote, well, this is what we're doing. No, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of passion on both sides of the coin regarding this issue. And so I want to make sure that there's a clear understanding on the part of our public of what this step really means. Sure. So, Mr. Wilmot, can you just, again, for the public, explain exactly what we're going to do and what it means to the vote?
Please, Mr. Wilmot.
As Dr. Leming has indicated, localities and third parties or non-parties are not allowed to file an amicus brief without permission of the court. So you file a motion for leave to file or permission to file an amicus brief. In your motion, you need to go beyond just moving for leave to file an amicus brief. You will need to lay out a summary of what it is you have to offer, what position you intend to take in filing your amicus brief. So, as I indicated, I think before, I'm able, willing, happy to file a motion to file an amicus brief if that's what the board wants. I would need to know which side of the coin you're on. I assume and presume it's the side arguing that this election is unconstitutional and it's illegal. It didn't follow the proper process. But having a motion tonight for me to file an amicus brief doesn't literally tell me which side of the coin I'm supposed to be. And you heard a lot of people tonight that were on the other side of the coin. So what I'm assuming from your motion tonight would be that I would file, if it passes, I would file a motion with the Supreme Court of Virginia for leave to file an amicus brief. That amicus brief would offer Gloucester County's position that the election of April 21st and the early voting thereon are unlawful and are unconstitutional or violative of the General Assembly's rules and procedures. Everything that's already been thrown in the can by the parties in the case. I understand from one of the speakers that one of the things you can present in an amicus brief is policy arguments, and that's true. You can, and they will be presented one way or another. If there is something in particular that this Board of Supervisors wants me to put in the motion and perhaps the brief, I'm happy to do that if it's appropriate. I feel like I'm going to be, well, regurgitating a lot of things that will or have already been said. One thing I do want to dispel is that this won't add any costs for the county. I'm paid for, which doesn't sound right, does it? I'm bought and paid for. Yes, it will take some of my time, but that's good. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It will not cost the county any additional time or resources. But another thing I want to point out is they don't keep score. They don't say, oh, well, let's see, Gloucester's against and Loudoun's for and Middlesex is against, and they don't keep score. So one of the purposes is not to be on record as being pro or con. It is to try and convince or sway the court to your side of what you think is right. So having said all that, if you move by a majority of vote tonight for me to file a motion, I will, and I'll do my best to relay the reasons, which I understand are on the side of the Republican Party, arguing that, well, actually, that is the party in this case. It's the party in the case is the Republican National Committee. That is the party in the case. That is the party, meaning not the Republican Party, but the party in the case, arguing that the election is illegal. So what I will do is I will be presenting the arguments of the party in this case, which is the Republican Party, that the election is unlawful, unconstitutional, inappropriate, shouldn't be held, shouldn't have the early voting, didn't have the 2 successive sessions, didn't have enough time to have the early voting. So all of those reasons. And that the question is not an appropriate question. It doesn't match the 2 questions. The question says we're in favor of fair elections or fairness. Well, that's arguably misleading. Everyone's in favor of fairness. So for all of the reasons that have been presented by that party in the case, I can file the motion and the brief. It will be repeating what has been said, but I can do that.
I'm still confused. So, amicus brief, right? Here's us asking the court to have an amicus brief, right? So it's all just asking them, but you have to provide some documentation, right? Why you want to do that, correct? Right. So
I don't have to write the brief.
So we're not really doing the amicus brief.
Yes.
We're just asking.
The first part is you have to petition the court for leave. You have to ask the court, can we, a non-party, will you allow us, a non-party, to submit an amicus brief? And if the court says no,
right,
end of conversation.
So why when you say the non-party, when you just said that it's the Republican Party that is...
Gloucester County is not...
We're not a part of this.
We're not part of the suit.
Okay. So it's a request, again, so people understand that it goes to the court can say, forget it, guys, go do your stuff for the county, right? They could do that, right? I'm going to be able to use your motion. Can I do that? Okay, great. So, again, there are a lot of people that have emailed us. They're going to get calls. They understand that what we're doing could go to the court and say, God, just go back to doing the business of the county, right? That's what they can do.
Okay.
But if they come back, then we got to, then it could be what, months? Could even be after the election, right?
Correct.
There's a deadline of April 6th to file your motion.
But then we have to be approved to do that.
And then I have about 2 or 3 weeks if we're approved to file the brief.
Okay.
And that's fine.
But don't you have to tell them what's going to be on the brief when you go to Judge Shaw or whoever?
I go to the Supreme Court of Virginia.
But you have to get the judge's permission to go to...
The Supreme Court of Virginia judges, not our judge.
Oh.
Yeah, the bigwigs.
Yeah.
So, but you have to still tell them what you're going to ask. summarize
There's
it.
no explicit legal requirement that I explain why I'm filing the motion. But filing a motion with not stating your grounds therefore is like doing something that I shouldn't say.
Correct.
And Dr. Orth, to make sure that we all understand, because it's a lot of misinformation out there, obviously, from the emails. And I've tried to relay it in the best possible way. There's no additional cost, as Dr. Wilmot says.
Wilmot.
Yeah, you've been promoted. Two, we're not stopping or impeding vote. We don't have the authority to do so. What we're doing is we are presenting this to the Virginia Supreme Court to let them know how we feel about the constitutionality of it, so said when they have their actual hearing. That's it. We're not coming as a political party. We are coming as board members representing our citizens and representing the Constitution of Virginia, which we were sworn an oath to defend and to protect. So if someone's doing something, regardless of who it is, against the Constitution, we should stand up and say, you know what, we have opinion about this. That's all we're asking.
I'm just bringing this up.
I'm making sure
all
that,
the stuff
I'm giving you
that's
the layman's terms.
I know, I'm just saying that it's out there. And if we agree, it's going to be, who knows how the people, because no one's watching tonight, and they're never going to look at, they're not going to look at the tapes, they're not going to look at anything, they're going to just hear what has happened, and yeah.
And that's the problem. The problem is that I've read every email, and I have responded to every email in a respectful, consistent way about constitutionality and our duties as board members. That's all. And there's a lot of information about costs, taxpayer costs, which we know that's not true. So we've dispelled that. And that we're not trying to impede anyone's vote. That was consistent in every one of those emails. It's almost like it was scripted. So, you know, we can't just go on misinformation and make that decision based on their misinformation. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's not fair.
I'm just bringing it up because it's frustrating for all of us to hear all this, and then, you know, anyway, I'm just bringing that up because
we can't not make a decision based on people's misinformation.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
First of all, this is not a lawsuit. I just want to make sure that I get in, this is not a lawsuit. In no way, shape, or form, if the court permits the brief to be submitted, in no way, shape, or form is an amicus brief a lawsuit. Next. The citizens of Gloucester County are paying Mr. Wilmot's salary. This incremental work does not represent an increase in his salary or the burden to the citizens of the Commonwealth. If permitted to file an amicus brief to the Supreme Court of Virginia, has absolutely zero effect on my, your, or anybody else's opportunity to go cast their vote in this election, or by the way, any other election for that matter. So the concept of we're interfering with vote is bogus. The concept that we're participating in frivolous lawsuits is just quite unfounded. And the fact that we are causing an increase in cost to the taxpayers is equally unfounded. And Dr. Orth, I too read every single email, and I'm going to confess that I don't engage in, I always send somebody back a response that I've read it, but I generally don't engage in detailed explanations via email because I've done that in the past and it has not worked well.
And all I have ever explained is just the premise, the basics, and arguing against what they said, the taxpayer increase, all of that. Because I've tried to dispel some of those, and some of those people actually were presented today in their comments. So, and I got the emails from them. So I did address that. So, you know, they may have sent that before they got my response, but I made sure that it was polite and consistent to let them know that these were the actual truth facts about what we were moving forward to today. As true as I can attain to it, all right?
Mr. Nicosia?
Subject to change.
Mr. Wilmot, quick question. You could send this brief up to the Supreme Court of Virginia and they could kick it right back to you, correct? Is that what I understand you to say? Is that
Yes, sir. They could deny the motion, yes.
they could deny the motion. So yet again, does not affect anybody's vote. Yet again, does not impede on the stream of automobiles that I have seen in the courthouse. Good to see it. However, the other piece of that is that our council has told us that they could deny it, and that they could deny it, and that it doesn't won't have a real punch to it. But I think, like Ms. Hanson, I think the big thing is, you know, I don't mind getting persecuted. It's part of the job. But just be careful how much persecution you want to do. Make sure you got, you know, make sure things are right, because Mr. Wilmot has told you he's paid, as he said. So no extra, nothing is going on. But I want the people who are watching to know that just because he sends it there doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay. They could send it right back.
And then once it comes back, am I incorrect, then we would also collectively decide or kind of direct you on what we would like to have in that brief, or you just gonna make this up magic? Just ask it.
No, Ms. Hanson, if they were to grant the motion, I would certainly come back to you, perhaps with a draft of what I would intend to include, and then offer your input from you as to what I should take out or add.
Absolutely, I'll be incorporated. Thank you.
To add to that, the second, they kick it back to you and say, "Oh, we're not gonna take this up." It dies right there.
Yeah, yes, sir, it would die right there.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
Wilmot,
Hutson.
have you heard of any other localities have filed any, and what status?
No, but
is?
I've not asked. It would not surprise me at all. In fact, I think some would. Those redder ones would tend to want to, but the bluer ones might to file the amicus brief for the other side. Sure. So I can imagine some jurisdictions doing it, yes, but I've not heard. But then again, you know me, I rarely ask what others do.
And if they only post on the internet that they're doing it, he for sure hasn't seen it. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion before we? Okay. Ms. Steele, would you pull the board?
Dr. Leming? Yes. Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonniville?
Yes.
Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. We'll go in and we'll take a little break while we're in there.
That way, yeah, because Trish could leave.
Yep. Next up, we have a closed session. Mr. We're gonna handle that, but as we're clearing out. Mr. Wilmot, would you read us in the closed session?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cindy, print a hard copy.
Would you like mine?
No, I've got it. It's good.
I do have one thing I'd like to say real quick.
No, sir.
Nothing. It's a thank you, is what it is.
Well, thank you for.
Thank you.
For what happened last session where you guys canceled those permits in the smoke shops.
Oh.
Sheriff Warren, that really goes to show the sheriff and all his deputies how much we support them.
Yep.
I slipped on it, I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Very much.
Good night.
Very informative. Y'all got your work cut out for you.
Thank you.
Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors desires to discuss a particular subject in closed meeting during the course of its meeting of March 9, 2026, and whereas the nature of the subject is personnel matters, more specifically county administrator position and duties, such discussion in closed meetings expressly permitted pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby convene in closed meeting for the purposes herein expressed pursuant to the legal authority herein recited.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Ms. Steele, would you poll the board?
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonniville?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming?
Yes.
We're in close.
This discussion in closed meeting and now desires to continue its open meeting, and whereas only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during closed meeting, and the only subjects heard, discussed, or considered in said closed meeting were the matters identified in the resolution by which it was convened. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby reconvene an open meeting at its meeting of March 9, 2026, and certifies the matter set forth in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D.
So moved.
Is there, we have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion. Ms. Steele, would you poll the board?
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonneville? Yes. Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming? Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Okay. There is one more item.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.